Hey guys, good morning. Welcome to another day with Zimaleta. In today's video I'm going to be testing the turbo actuator, the electronic part, and I'm going to be installing the new and the old one and just trying to see if you could actually mix and match turbo actuators for different type of sprinters. And I'm going to test every little thing that I can that actually comes to mind. I was going to actually put this all in one video, but there is so many tests that I just did, guys. It is crazy. I don't want to make it too long, so I'm just gonna call this video I'm testing the turbo actuator, and then another video I'm gonna do everything else, because that in itself is just one mind-boggling thing. So if you guys know anything about it, please leave it in the comments below, because it's certainly confusing, as you will see. It seems like it does make a difference. So anyways, guys, I have just pulled out the turbo actuator. This is the one that I have pulled out. This is my replacement turbo actuator. I was told to basically watch out by one of my viewers that these levers here are adjusted specifically for the turbo, and I'm trying to watch out for it. Supposedly they are supposed to be kind of like an actuator comes with a turbo, and it's specifically designed for that turbo. It's specifically kind of like engineered, but upon inspection I can't really see the difference. I actually put the levers side by side and they're exactly the same, but anyways, that's besides the point. So anyways, we were thinking that the actuator is the kind of like the cause of the turbo. It's a possible cause, and I can't tell you guys, it probably is. Upon inspection, this lever is really stuck. Look, it's completely rusted on over here. Look, this one here has play, this one doesn't. So, and as a matter of fact, okay, so that's supposed to have a little play in here, and so that's a little play, so that's fine. But guys, that is completely stuck. So it's like, it's almost kind of like, no wonder, like, how would this actually adjust the turbo? Like, that doesn't seem like it's right. So possibly the little leg is the only thing is wrong. So moving on, every time you try to actually remove something, you usually run into a problem, and I certainly did this time. Look, this turbo actuator I removed from my parts van, and it removed just fine, and it was a little dirty. I cleaned it up. But this one, it's the same mileage sprinter, and it's completely different. Like, this actuator has a stuck bolt. I actually had to cut it off using my sawzall right here. I used this type of blade right here. Man, it cut it clean off. It was really quick. But this is the longer bolt that actually bolts onto the turbo. And actually I had to cut it from two ends. I had to cut the little head off where the turbo mounts. Let me show you that. Right here, you probably see me kind of like doing a little cutting, because I wanted to really go close to the turbo and cut it clean off. Once I remove the turbo, if I need to remove the turbo, I will actually clean that up. It does seem like this turbo is actually working fine. The only thing that it's really concerning is this lever. It seems like it's doing a little bit too much play. Like, it goes way too far in my book, I think. And look at this little noises. And I really don't think you should do that. So I'm really not sure, but what I'm gonna go ahead and do is go ahead and install another actuator and go from there. Hey guys, in order to speed things up, I went ahead and installed everything off camera. We got the turbo actuator on. I did not actually install the ring. It fit just fine. So looks like this turbo and that turbo actuator match if they do make them differently, which I really don't see why they would, to adjust them for every single turbo. But I guess let's turn it on and we'll see. So I guess, guys, let's turn it on and let's see how it works. I should have pre-warmed my glow plugs. you hear that noise? I can't say I heard it before, but it's there now. So I'm really not sure if that's a little different adjustment for the turbo actuator. It could be, maybe not, but let's go for a test. Okay guys, first things first, I had it running for about 5 to 10 minutes now. So let's see if we're in limp mode. We are not, but it also quit on us. And now it won't start. Hey guys, I did a similar test before in the previous video where there was a way that I adjusted the turbo that it would just cause it to quit. So possibly there's even kind of like, there's either like some kind of malfunction inside the turbo and it's kind of closed and it's gonna cause the vehicle to shut down, or it's maybe not recognizing the turbo actuator somehow, which I don't see why it would not recognize it, but you know, who knows. So I may need to rule this out, and the way to rule this out is disconnect the turbo lever and adjust it kind of down, and we're gonna see if there's any difference. Okay, so I removed the turbo lever and I kind of put it down. So actually, here's what I've noticed, guys. The turbo actuator does work. It actually was all the way in the down position. It was not in up position. So let's see if we could rev it now. This does seem like it wants to quit, like it's not enough power, so I don't want to really give it too much. So you see what I did with the lever there? So now it's fine. It seems like if I adjusted the lever, it's fine, but the turbo actuator is probably in the wrong position. As you can see, the turbo lever is back on. Seems like it wants to quit, so let's shut it down. Let's turn it back on. Yeah, like it seems like it wants to die. I really don't like this, guys. Does not work right. There's probably something inside wrong with the turbo, or I'm not sure. It could be actually the actual actuator is not doing its job. Maybe it doesn't act like it's even plugged in. It almost quit. I do see some white smoke that came out on that last one. I actually had to yeah, the smoke smells a little bit kind of like burnt plastic almost. Hey guys, I think I know what we could do to rule out the possibility that this is the turbo actuator not communicating with the computer, because it is a different turbo actuator. There's nothing electronic about the turbo, so by replacing the turbo and installing the one you're supposed to that came with this turbo, I don't really think it's gonna do anything, because the turbo is a mechanical part. The actuator is an electronic part that communicates with the computer. So there's a good possibility that the turbo actuator, it needs to communicate with the computer. So here's what I'm gonna do. I will unplug the turbo and I will actually plug in the original turbo actuator without really putting it on bolts or nothing. And we're gonna see if it's going to behave differently. Right now, it's the way it's running, it is really running kind of weird. So I'm gonna shut the van off, plug in another turbo actuator, but it's gonna be sort of like dangling. Okay guys, I have basically plugged in the original turbo actuator, but instead of dangling, I was able to find a spot where it's gonna keep it from vibrating and pulling the wires too much. So let's see if that made a difference. It certainly did, guys. I could already tell the difference. So it looks like the turbo actuator is specifically programmed for the specific vehicle that you're driving, which is really unfortunate. I just don't see why it would be. That does not make any sense. But obviously, look, it fixed it. I plugged in another turbo actuator and now it's working. And guess what? The turbo actuator leg is in the same position, the old one. So the old turbo actuator, well, not the old one, the one that I just installed from another vehicle, it is still attached with its leg on the turbo. So that position has not changed. The only thing that I've done differently this time, and it's now not making this crazy whistling sounds, is I unplugged the turbo actuator, the one that I just installed, and plugged in the original one. And the original one is not even connected with the leg lever, so it's not even controlling anything, but it is acting fine, which is very surprising. It's actually acting fine right now. So I'm going to try to unplug it again and plug in that actuator again, and then we're gonna probably hear the whistling sounds. But before I do that, let me show you that it's not making that whistling sound. So as you can see, guys, it's working normally with that other turbo actuator. Before I plug it in, the original one, let me kind of like explain to you something. Why I think it does not make any sense. And that's because that Sprinter over there has a different computer installed, has a different immobilizer, has a different key, even has a different transmission control module, and I never even touched the turbo actuator. So it's like, what's up? Like, why would it be any different? The only thing I could think of, well, what if this turbo actuator, it's actually dead? What if this turbo actuator just doesn't work? It could be. And that's a good thing that I have a bunch of parts in here that I could actually you know, install one and rule that possibility out, because obviously you could see a difference. And now I'm gonna plug in that other one. I bet it's gonna be this whistling sound, and it's really weird to have. So guys, I kind of did this on purpose. I had my phone laying underneath the vehicle. I plugged in, I unplugged the turbo actuator. It did not make a change, but as soon as I plug in that other turbo actuator, immediately the sound has changed. So now I plugged in that other actuator again, but this time the sound did not actually go away, so it's probably going to go away when I restart the vehicle. So let's test that. So let's shut it off. No, it's still there, which is kind of weird. So guys, the strange thing is that, well, now we have the power back. Yeah, the strange thing is, guys, that the turbo actuator is either not being accepted by the Sprinter, or it's a defective turbo actuator somehow, but I don't think why it would be defective, because it is trying to control the turbo. I did see the lever go down, so it's possibly working. So now, like, the only thing I have to do is remove another turbo actuator from another Sprinter, stick that thing over here, and let's see if that's even gonna work. Because I really don't understand why it would not work from a different vehicle. And I know some of you guys like probably thinking, well, it should not work because it's programmed for that specific computer. Well then, if you're thinking like that, then explain to me why is my million-mile Sprinter is still working with that different turbo actuator when I plugged in a completely different computer from the part Sprinter, and that's a 2004 part Sprinter, and I have a 2006 Sprinter, so even the years don't match. And now from that same Sprinter, that's where the turbo and the actuator came from. I installed the actuator for this Sprinter, but not the turbo. So like, why would it not work? Like, why would it be any different? I just don't get it. And right now with the vehicle working, this is the original turbo actuator being plugged in. Like, it is recognizing that actuator, which is kind of odd. So I guess one thing I'll have to do is I'll have to probably clean up the little leg, make the leg shift, and we'll see if that makes any difference. Guys, I decided to do one more test. Right now, the turbo actuator that was plugged in, which is the original turbo actuator, it was plugged in but not hooked up to the turbo. I unplugged it, and I did not plug in the other turbo actuator. So right now there's no turbo actuator. Let's start it up and see if that changes. Well, it seems like it's working normal. There is absolutely no difference. So now let's try to rev it. So without the turbo actuator being plugged in, it put it in limp mode, but at least it's working fine. So let's shut it down again. So this time I wanted to take you guys underneath with me, and just so you could see like where I'm actually messing with this stuff. So I just now plugged in the turbo actuator from a different turbo, plugged it up again. Let's start it up and see if that again makes a difference, or it's just gonna trigger its own little thing. And then we're gonna try to clear it with the computer. So let's start it up. Immediately it's making a sound. Let me show you the sound. It's that nasty sound, guys. And the surprising factor is it is not throwing a code. So basically it's not throwing a code, and you can see that. So we're gonna go ahead and try to erase the code anyways. Yeah, it's basically wants to quit on me. So guys, I guess at this point I have two options: fix the other turbo module, or just install a different one, and just to see if another turbo module would work, and you know, because this one's not working. So that is going to be kind of interesting. And then I guess I could test another thing. I could actually test this particular module. Once I do remove it, this turbo actuator, I'm calling it a module, this turbo actuator, I could test it in the van that has the original computer to that, and we'll see if my other van recognizes it, or it's going to create the same type of noise. Because there is a possibility. I mean, it could be dead for all we know. It could be dead. You know, we just don't know. But before we do all that, let's fix the original one and try to install it. After all, it's not going to be that hard anymore because I already removed it. It's only being installed by 2 bolts currently, because the other bolt hole in the turbo, it is basically occupied with like another bolt little end, so I'll have to drill it out. But basically, guys, let me show you what's going on with the turbo. Guys, this is the turbo actuator here. That piece supposed to move, but this is supposed to move as well. And as you can see, it's really rusted on. I can't really even force it to move. So possibly this thing is good electronically. The only thing that's bad, it is this little shifty thing, because I know it's supposed to move. So anyways, guys, I got some WD-40. Let's spray this pretty good and let it simmer in the oven for 15 minutes at 350 degrees. That should make things work. Hey guys, this is my original turbo actuator that I've been installing, and things actually work fine. But what doesn't work fine is this leg right here. As you can see, it barely moves right there. It should actually move a lot more when it's electronically controlled, but this leg should move just like this one does when things are being adjusted. So I have sprayed some WD-40 over here to actually make it work, but for some reason this module is not actually working electronically. So I have to go actually test it on its original computer. So guys, before I actually replace this turbo actuator, and I know I call it a module sometimes too, let me explain kind of like what I'm actually getting ready to do. The original computer that belongs to this turbo is in my million-mile Sprinter with its original immobilizer, original ignition switch, but a different transmission control module. So that Sprinter should recognize this turbo actuator if it's the communication type of issue. And the way to test it is I have to actually plug this turbo actuator up, and we'll see if it actually recognizes it, because what if it's just a communication issue? What if some codes need to match inside, and it will work on some vehicles, it won't work on others? I mean, I have to kind of like rule out that possibility. So guys, I have removed the C-clamp from here, and it's still very, very much stuck. So I'll just have to play around with it a little bit. Anyways guys, since I got the turbo module off now and that other piece is not moving yet, I'm just gonna spray a little bit more WD-40 on it. Just let it sit there for a minute before I start really like messing with it, because I'll probably need to pry it off its little arm, but kind of like to be careful so I don't break it, because it seems at this point this is the only turbo actuator that's actually working. But here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go ahead and plug in the turbo actuator that wasn't working on this van. This is the one I wanted to install. It is this one here that's got the little arm thing. It is moving. I'm gonna just plug it in electronically to my million-mile Sprinter and see if that really changes anything. I am very curious to find out, like, is it the turbo actuator that's bad, or it's not being recognized by the computer? So this will rule out that possibility, because if this thing is not going to be recognized by that other Sprinter, it's just dead actuator, because that's the original computer that goes with this turbo actuator. So if it's not going to work in there, it's not going to work. And here's another thing that I'm like thinking, why would it not actually recognize the turbo actuator like with a different computer, if when I change the computer in that Sprinter with its immobilizer and ignition switch and everything, I didn't even think about the turbo actuator. Like, things just worked. It was pretty much plug and play. And the transmission control module, you just basically plug and play that. The alarm, for the doors and stuff, you pretty much just plug and play that. You just need original key. So the keyless entry that's actually working on that door, on those doors, it's actually from the parts van. And this actuator is from the parts van. And as you can see, it's a pretty clean actuator. So I don't see why it would be dead. So I don't know. Maybe it's numbers. Maybe the certain numbers needs to match. Maybe it's tuned a certain way. I don't know. But anyways, okay guys, this is my million-mile Sprinter. Let's go ahead and start it up with its normal type of actuator. So it's working fine, as you could see. Let's see if the sound will change once I plug in another turbo. Guys, it did not change. Just plugged it up, as you can see. It's acts the same way. So I'm gonna try to go rev the vehicle up a little bit. Okay, it is in limp mode actually, which is really surprising. So that actuator must be bad. I plugged up my computer and I'm just getting a couple glow plug codes. That's it. I have deleted the codes, but without shutting the vehicle off. Let's see if it's still in limp mode. It's not. Seems like it's working, and this is with another actuator. It's not trying to shut things off. Yeah, very strange. So guys, this is kind of the confusing portion of the vlog. So this actuator was causing problems, like not actually working in that Sprinter, but it is working in this one. This is the original turbo actuator to this computer. So could it be that some turbo actuators are specifically programmed for the computer, and maybe they have certain type of codes, and those codes, somehow I was like lucky and those codes matched when I actually plugged and played this computer. So that's very interesting, guys. Very interesting indeed. Because this means that just by changing a computer in some Sprinters, with a module and the key stuff, like it might not actually necessarily work for your vehicle. So could happen. So I'm not really sure, because it seems like it's working. It's not a limp mode right now. So what I'm curious about now, guys, I just unplugged it while it's running. Let's see if it's in limp mode. Okay, so obviously it's in limp mode by me actually unplugging it. So let's see if I turn it off. So vehicle off, back on. Okay, no longer in limp mode. Man, guys, I'm getting dirty. This Sprinter specifically kind of dirty underneath, like with oil and stuff like that. So now, guys, I have to do another test. This means with the engine off, I need to plug in that other turbo actuator and see if that changes any difference again. I'm doing it for you guys, so that we could actually rule out that possibility. What if it was running and things were normal and I cleared the codes, you know, stuff like that. So we're gonna plug it up. Okay, now the turbo actuator is plugged in, the one I brought here. Let's see if it is in the pod. It's not. Everything's working normal. So it looks like, guys, it is time for me to unplug this turbo actuator and put the original one back. It is a little bit disappointment type of outcome, but at the same time, I'm not disappointed, because it seems like this turbo actuator is good. It's just fine. It is being recognized by this computer. So they are probably, these turbo actuators are probably like programmed for a specific VIN number or something, because something is matching up with this one and I'm not sure what it is. Guys, look what I just unplugged from my Sprinter. I know for sure this is something extra. This is either a tracking device or something. But when it was plugged in, the light was actually blinking on this thing. It was rather difficult to unplug. Like, it seemed like those plugs were just ridiculously on there. This is where it was. This blue connector was plugged in close to that one, and this here, and they're basically rolled up this wire in here. This is all extra. So I wonder now. Guys, what is interesting, this is original turbo actuator, and this is how it's working. It is working very differently. The way the other actuator that did not want to work. So I'm really surprised by this fact. Still making that sound. Turning it off. Turning it on. Right now it's actually disconnected. So that's the weird thing about it. So let me reconnect it. So I'm still making this sound, as you can see. Turbo is plugged in at the moment, but it is making that sound. And the strange thing about it, at certain portions where the turbo actually plugs in, it does feel like the vent just wants to quit. So I readjusted the legs, turned it on, so it's not trying to quit right now, and it's going above the normal, you know, RPMs like it's supposed to. So I'm really not sure what's going on. I wonder if plugging in this old system here has something to do with it. I just plugged it up, guys. As you can see, those lights are nice and bright. So let's see if they're on when I turn it on. Look, the lights are still on. I mean, this could be like draining my battery. Okay. Interesting. They're just blinking. So let's see if that did any difference. Nope, it's same thing. So with the lever down, it wants to actually completely quit working. If I do raise the lever up a little bit, it does not quit. Let me actually check. So at this point, it's not actually trying to turn my van off, but you know, so like what I'm trying to figure out now is if I'm gonna plug in the other turbo actuator, will it actually be any different now? Guys, I plugged in the other turbo actuator that I've been trying to plug it in here all along. Let's see if this actually will be the same or different. So I still got that sound. Well, it's certainly different. Now that I'm plugging it in, it's not going above 3,000 RPMs like it did before. Let's turn it off and turn it back on and see if that makes sense. So I'm gonna turn the van back on. So you can clearly see the van is trying to die, but I have not adjusted the lever anymore. So what I'm gonna try to do again is disconnect the turbo actuator, a different one, and plug in the original one. Let's see if it's gonna die then. And as far as for the sound, maybe that sound is just being created because the turbo inside, there's something rubbing, has to do with that little leg thing, because I do believe there's something wrong inside of the turbo. Okay, so I plugged in the original turbo actuator. Let's see if that made a difference. It does seem like it's almost the same. Works a little bit rough though, and I'm getting clouds of smoke there. You can kind of see it. I did actually clear the codes even though there wasn't any, and the problem kind of like went away. And as you can see, I could actually rev to 4,000 RPMs. So I'm actually going to shut the van off. I do hear the sound though in the pipes. It could be just turbo noise. So we're gonna shut it down and start it back up again. So now it's acting kind of weird. This is still original turbo actuator plugged up, but after turning it on, it's all of a sudden kind of like really acting weird. Let me clear the code if there is actually no codes, but let me clear it anyways and see if that. I cleared the code that did not shut the van off. Let's see if that makes a difference, if it still wants to die. It does not want to die now. So I want to do another test by actually turning the van off and on again and see if it's going to want to die again. You can clearly see a difference, and we're gonna cut it out right now, clear the codes even though there's none, and see if that makes a difference again. And I could actually see smoke even coming through here. After shutting it off, it smokes. When I clear the codes, it doesn't smoke. So I clear the codes. So guys, I cleared the codes. It does not smoke, as you can see, and it does accelerate a little bit better. So that raises the next question. could I do the same thing with another turbo actuator that wasn't working along? Maybe it's just this technical difficulties type of thing. I like to rule out all these possibilities, guys. So I'm gonna go plug in the other turbo actuator. I know it's not gonna perform right. We're gonna clear the code and we're gonna see if that actually works. Okay, guys, another turbo actuator is plugged in. This is pretty much going to be kind of like the final test that I will do, and then I'm gonna try to fix the original turbo actuator. But I would like to rule out the possibility of the actual turbo actuator is not fitting other vans. And that's what I want to really figure out. Like, why would it run any differently? Why is this turbo actuator running good on that other van, does not run good on this one? And of course I already had it connected. The lever was working, but it was still not controlling the turbo correctly. Maybe I should have cleared the codes. I can't remember now if I did or not. I already did like so many code clearing, even though there wasn't any codes. Maybe it could actually would have, you know, maybe it would have worked. I don't know. But then it means again that I'll have to keep clearing the codes. So this would kind of cause that there's something inside of the turbo. The wastegate inside of the turbo is broken. Could be the turbo vanes. Everybody calls it differently. I'm still going to refer to it as a wastegate because something is opening up and all the waste is trying to get out, and it's being controlled from inside of the turbo electronically with an actual actuator by opening up and closing down those passages. There's a lot of them there, so everybody has a little different word. I'm just going to call it wastegate because that's actually what it is. It's waste trying to get out, therefore spinning the turbo faster or slower, you know, according to my thoughts. So let's turn it on and see how rough it's on. Okay, we cut it on. Doesn't seem so bad, but let's clear the codes and see if it's better. But obviously you can see it does not really want to go too much above 3000 RPMs, and I really don't see any smoke. The code is deleted. Can you see the difference, guys, or there's really not any? So let's shut it off again and see once I turn it on, see what it does. Kind of looks the same to me, which is kind of weird. It's not really trying to die. I don't know, because it was before like it wants to just die, and I would have to like fiddle with the gas pedal to try to keep it running, but it's not dying now. Why is it so? Let's turn it off and do it again. Okay, it does not seem like there's any difference now, which is kind of weird. And you guys have seen in previous tests, once I actually turn off the vehicle with another turbo actuator being plugged in, it almost wanted to die. And that's why, to rule out the possibility that it's the lever being in a certain position, for every single test now that I did, the lever is not being touched on turbo. It's in the same position. So nothing is controlling the lever. But, however, I did notice some smoke on this test. I cleared the codes, even though there wasn't any, and let's see if that still creates smoke or how will it run any better. There is a tiny amount of smoke, but not that much. I could kind of see like through that little window thing because my pipe is kind of like disconnected. So who knows what's going on. Like at this point, like it seems kind of like it's the same, and this is a different turbo actuator, guys. This is not the original one, so it's not trying to die on me now. So I guess for this test I want to try to put it lower. Guys, I'm kind of being stumped on this one now. Like, now it seems like it's behaving just fine. Like, it's almost kind of like it's accepted another turbo actuator. as its own, which is kind of strange. And I changed the turbo position, so let's cut it off and see if it wants to die at this time. Okay, this time I do see a difference in big clouds of smoke. You could kind of, not really, you can't really see them. You could kind of see some smoke, yeah. So after cutting it off, definitely noticeable smoke, guys. Definitely it's not accelerating like it should. So let me clear the code again and see if that makes a difference. Okay, the codes are cleared. I do see smoke, and it does seem like it's working a little bit better. Here's what I'm noticing, guys. After clearing the code, it's a lot more lively. Like it wants to go to 4,000 RPMs with ease, but it doesn't when I shut the van off. So let's shut it down again just to clarify this thing, you know. It's definitely a lot more work to get it to 4,000. The code is cleared. I know it does not seem like there is any difference, guys, but I can tell the difference, and I could actually feel a little kick in the engine, like it is more stronger somehow. I definitely notice a difference. I know that might not seem like noticeable, but it is noticeable difference. Now codes are cleared. Did you see a difference last time, guys? I just did 4 revs. 2 of the revs that I just did, they very easily went up and very slowly came down. But the other 2 revs, after I just restarted the van without clearing the codes, they kind of had a hard time going up, and they kind of went down, I think, a little bit too fast. See if you noticed that difference. Guys, I know I said it was gonna be like last time, and I wasn't gonna like try to plug in the turbo actuator again, but now I plugged in the original, and I want to see if it does the same thing when I turn the engine off and on, if it's somehow being the same with the turbo lever still in the same position like this one, or is it gonna want to die or what. Like, these things are confusing, and I'm like, I knew that before I even started these tests, before I even tested in that other vehicle, that there was a difference. There was a major difference. Like, it literally, the van wanted to die with that other actuator. But now I'm kind of thinking, you know, with me shutting off the engine, somehow it, you know, like once I restart it, like a computer recognizes like there's a problem, it somehow makes the turbo like not perform as well. So it does something. So when I do clear the code, it kind of tricks the computer and it revs good. So like what I'm trying to figure out now that I shut the van off, I have another computer, and I'm gonna try to shut it off 2 times just to rule the possibility out, because for the previous shut off, the other turbo actuator was still plugged in, so the computer might be thinking that it's still the other actuator. So I need to do it twice and see if the revs change. So here we go, guys. The first start. You certainly could tell the difference, guys. This is a first start, but it's still acting pretty good. Like, it's revving fine. Like, I would consider this being good. But let me clear the codes and see if anything changes. So let's, it's cleared now, even though there was nothing to clear. Okay, let's shut the van off now. Wait just a second. Okay, the first couple of revs after restarting the engine were kind of like a little bit rough. I could definitely tell the engine is somehow like misidling a little bit. Just it's not doing correct job. So I clear the codes. Well, I'm gonna clear the codes now, and let's see if that makes it. This is before I clear it. Now the codes are cleared. Okay, this time it seems kind of the same. Like, it definitely seems that there's a difference. You know, I know this is kind of like, man, this is a lot of testing for sure. It makes the video very long, but I think it is important to find out whether you can use another turbo actuator, whether it will work or not. But I could definitely see a difference. When I plug in another turbo actuator, like, it somehow performs a little bit worse, but once I plug the actuator in, it plugs in better. But what do you guys think in the comment section? I did try to describe the whole test pretty clearly. So now when I plugged in the original, this is the original turbo actuator being plugged in. It seems like at first was like a little bit of a rough idle, and then it's sort of like it learned that it's original actuator, and now it's performing good. Like, I technically did not even need to clear the codes. It seemed like it behaved just fine with the original actuator. So I'm really not exactly sure what's going on. I guess the only thing I haven't done is I did not do an actual test me driving this with another actuator installed. But one thing that I can tell you is that with another actuator, somehow, like, it wants to die. I didn't even feel like good like driving that van because the lever was like in the wrong place or something. Like, it was not doing something right. So I guess one thing I need to figure out now is go ahead and make that little shifty little thing work on that other actuator, the original one from this one, then install it, then see if that's even gonna work for the test, if it's gonna like drive fine with it, and how long it's gonna take for it to trigger like another computer. But I do think there's something wrong with the turbo, guys. I know from all the tests you've seen, it does not really seem like it's anything wrong with the turbo. Like, it seems like it's going fine. And I did try to rotate the turbo with the hose being off, and it just seems like it's fine. Like, it does not even wobble. It has like no play in it whatsoever. So the only thing I am concerned about is with the wastegate being open. So it's not going to cause, I guess, a major difference, but it might cause potential blockages, I think, you know, and potentially the computer is going to realize it cannot really control it good because that mechanical part is broken. But also, I can't really say that with certainty because this actuator that was on here, that little arm, it's completely rusted on the little, you know, like close to the plasticky thing. You guys seen that already. And it possibly could not control it the correct way. So I need to get it loose, install it, and test it again. Just so you know it, guys, all the tests that we just did, this lever, that's what I'm actually calling the turbo. That's I call it the wastegate lever. That's what controls the exhaust gases. You could clearly see that is located in the exhaust portion of the vehicle where the exhaust exit, and that is controlling how much exhaust gets out, you know, that kind of thing. But I do can clearly tell if I actually shift it up, it does create a different type of sound. So it does work, at least halfway. It's working, or maybe it's working so well that I think it's really loose and it's really not the actual lever. Now all these different tests that I did, this lever was not connected, even for the original type of turbo actuator. And because it was not connected, the turbo actuator could easily be causing like a little limp mode where it's not performing properly because it's trying to control the turbo and it can't because the lever's not even connected. But you might be thinking, well, why am I really doing this kind of test? Well, I'll tell you why. Because last time when I installed a different type of actuator, I did everything correctly. You guys seen me that I installed a leg back on here and the vehicle was working really rough. Like, it just was not working right. So then I would plug in another turbo actuator and it would work better. And I think it was working better because the lever possibly was in the right place. And I definitely could tell it was a little bit towards, like a little bit higher, kind of like towards the middle. Like right now it is kind of sitting low. But I don't want to really burn myself, but it's hot right now. But that little lever does have some play in it, you know. So, but anyways, guys, I'm gonna try to remove that turbo actuator and go ahead and fix that little leg. So guys, this is the actual turbo actuator from my vehicle, and obviously you can see this little leg does not work. C-clamp is off. Here's another one that I've been testing as well. It works, but this one doesn't, so it's kind of strange. One of my viewers tried to help me out in figuring out this turbo actuator, and said that these turbo legs, the actuator legs that adjust the turbo, are designed specifically for that turbo, and they need to be calibrated. From the looks of these two, they look to be identical, like the same type of length and bend and everything. So it could be that the viewer is right, but in my case, this is exactly the same. But if I was the one that was designing these turbo actuators and turbos and stuff, I would not make many different kinds to try to adjust them and tune them a certain way for the legs, because this is just a leg to begin with, and it's a lot easier to make a lot of them if they're exactly the same. I see like no reason for them to make it any different. However, they can maybe adjust them on the electronical side internally with the computer software, and this is probably why it's causing this little weird type of stuff that, you know, all these tests that I have to do, you know, with a turbo actuator. And I also could be getting thrown off big time because my turbo could be bad, you know, it's a possibility. So you know, but I guess we're gonna know for sure once I plug in this turbo actuator. If it does work, great. You know, I'm gonna be happy with it, and then, well, I really don't want to install that other turbo actuator. I was gonna say I could test that one as well. I mean, it was already on this vehicle, it did not want to function, so it's not really necessary anymore. I just want to get this one fixed. Guys, this is rusted on so much that I already had it sitting over here for like several hours, soaked in WD-40. That did not work, so I got some basically PB blaster on there, and I already like several times, and it's still not working. I've been trying to move it, wiggle it, lightly tap it with like a screwdriver and stuff. Nothing is working. I mean, this portion is just made just like this. I mean, how could it be so rusted and not wanting to really get out like this? And I really don't want to use heat because this is plastics and stuff like right on it. So I'm thinking, man, if stuff rusts on that does not have any type of grooves and stuff, like, and they cannot be separated by PB blaster, then how could it help with stuck bolts? That's what I don't understand. But I don't know, I might just have to pour like a little container with this stuff and just like dunk it in there somehow and just kind of like let it soak. But I really don't want to break anything. Guys, I just literally used the whole can of WD-40 and made a little bath over here for this turbo actuator. I think it almost fits. I might have to customize it a little bit to make it slide in there by cutting the can a little bit. I've used another yogurt container and basically cut it down a little bit so I could make it a little bit flatter, and now I'll have to pour the bath inside. Hopefully this will work. It does seem like I poured it up max to where it's almost like leaking out, but it's not sitting far enough. Like it needs to sit far enough. Okay, it is now. So, but it's also leaking out some.